I believe the Progressive Party has something like 6 potential candidates for governor. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, you know, it's interesting because I worked on Scudder Parker's gubernatorial campaign in '06 as the field director, and you know, Molly Ivins is one of my idols in the world, and it's really sad she's no longer with us. But Molly Ivins is a political writer, was a political writer, and she wrote often about, you know, the thing that really needs to change in order for us to be able to make any change in terms of social justice issues in this country is campaign finance reform, because there's so much money that gets poured into elections out there, and without public financing, people are forever going to be limited on their ability to run if they don't personally have the resources themselves to put forward. And the thing that concerns me with 5 Democrats in the race right now and 1 Republican at this point is how much money is going to be poured into these primaries to see who will be the ultimate Democratic candidate to run against the Republican or whoever else might be in it for other parties in the general election. And because of that drain of resources, there's not going to be a lot of money at the end, and I'm just concerned of a balanced campaign there can be between the parties with so many candidates involved in the Democratic race right now. And while it's great, I just hope that throughout the process that certain people decide that they're not maybe the strongest candidate and step out, so we can really start to understand 2 candidates perhaps for the primary versus 5, because again, it's going to drain so many resources out of the process just in the primary. And we have to then appeal to those people who don't necessarily engage in the primary system, who are not identified with a party, because they really only turn out in the general election, and we want to make sure there's resources so they're getting informed on their options as well.
The Moran Plant and economic development of the waterfront are still an issue, as they were last year, and the Republicans are complaining about leasing space in the Moran Plant to nonprofits. Do you believe that it is important to protect the waterfront from private developers and commercialization?
Absolutely. To me, that's a no-brainer. It's our waterfront, and I think there's a role for public and private partnerships, but to privatize parts of the waterfront and therefore potentially cutting people's public access from their own lake, from their own area down there, is really problematic. And I think the Moran Plant, the great thing about the Moran Plant is, again, some more innovative thinking about how we can make a smart public-private partnership work. We have a 3rd spot that's open right now in terms of figuring out who the 3rd tenant will be within this building. We have a nonprofit and we have a private company right now for the other 2 spots. And I really want that 3rd spot to not only be a nonprofit if remotely possible, but one that works on a topic or has an appeal to kind of people who have limited, or at least be accessible to people who have limited incomes, because it's right on Moran is right on the edge of the old North End. And the worst thing we can do is to put public resources into a building that really only appeals to small segments of the population, or with people who only have, who are either tourists or have enough resources to pay, entrance fees to something like Ice Factor or whatnot. So that 3rd entity, I really hope, is also open to the public in as much as it can be in a free and accessible way, so everyone can take advantage of this public building that we're rehabbing right now. Because I think that's a smart use of the building, but in terms of the use inside, it just needs to be balanced. So I hope that that becomes part of the discussion. I know it's becoming part of the discussion as we figure out who that 3rd tenant is, but that we have to, again, just be mindful that it's our waterfront, and that means that we have to be very thoughtful about how we involve private entities in that area.
I believe the Maritime Museum is one of the candidates, and they are a nonprofit. Mm-hmm. And some of the other candidates are not related to the waterfront, but the Maritime Museum, their whole reason for being relates to the lake. Mm-hmm. So I would think that they would be a perfect candidate mm-hmm. to fill that spot. Mm-hmm.
I think so, and I think the exciting thing about having a museum-type setting is that it would also theoretically provide public space for community events or other types of events that would allow people to be there and use the building, even if they aren't specifically drawn to maritime history issues. But certainly that particular use makes a lot of sense, being right on the lake and having all of those shipwrecks close by in the Burlington Bay area.
Speaking of the waterfront, I believe that you've been associated with the Peace and Justice Center in the past. They recently relocated to the waterfront area. Has this relocation been successful, and what can be done to attract more people to the waterfront during the winter?
Yep, I worked for the Peace and Justice Center for 4 years as the director of their project, the Vermont Livable Wage Campaign. And they did move about 6 months ago down to the waterfront in the Lake Street building. I think it's been a little hard for their move, just because they used to be on Church Street and now they're down in a different area of the city. But they've changed their mission a little bit to really focus on doing more research and policy initiatives. And they still have the store, but I think you're right about, there is an impact because of the limited traffic flow of just people down there in the wintertime. So I think Moran is going to be a real new anchor to help draw people down there throughout the year. But I think, we have to be thoughtful about, we do a great job with festivals and use of that space in the summertime, in terms of the waterfront green space and whatnot, and just being smart about how can we also draw people down there for these other newer initiatives that have happened, like the Winter Festival that happens, where there's all sorts of things that go on Church Street. How can we grow from what we do well and continue to expand and utilize other parts of the city? So hopefully, if between that and Moran, they'll get some more traffic down there and be able to kind of have that be a good space for them.
An example of use of the waterfront in the wintertime is the Penguin Plunge.
Right.
I believe they had that last week.
Yep.
Did you plunge?
I did not. maybe next year. The whole concept of throwing myself into a frozen lake, I don't know. It seems a little courageous, and a lot of people do it, so maybe I will try next year. Maybe I'll take the plunge.
It's a big fundraiser, too.
It is,
I think
yep.
they have to pay to do it.
Well, you fundraise money for Special Olympics, which is a great organization. So, yeah, I'm glad so many people participate.
Well, we're running out of time now. I want to thank you for coming. And if people are interested in your campaign, do you have a website that they can learn more or volunteer to help?
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, thank you very much. This is great being on the show, as always. My website is www.emmaforcitycouncil.com. And my phone number, in case people have questions, is 802-540-0185.
Well, thank you again, Emma.
Yeah,
and for the people at home, thank you for listening to us. And the election is on March 2nd, town meeting day. And right after the election, we'll go back to the normal Vermont Today format. And I will be interviewing Charlotte Dennett about her new book, Bush, The People versus Bush. And the book has just come out. Charlotte is a Vermont lawyer, and I urge you to tune in on that program. It will be very interesting.